Okay everyone, what we have here is some of the problems that we got in our area to do with Opuntia species. This particular plant's called Opuntia robusta, or its common name's called Wheel Cactus. It is prolific in this area and it spreads quite well. It actually can be moved around from birds eating the seeds on the fruit. So you'll see at certain times these will come up with a red fruit and the birds like that and they'll spread the seeds around. So they are quite widespread in this area, so they can deal well with this harsh dry country. The only thing some people don't know about cactuses as well is they harbour fruit fly. So the fruits on them can put that chain of fruit fly between vast distances. So we're pretty enthusiastic about trying to control them as much as we can. There are a number of ways you can control them, one of which is to remove the plant with machinery, deep burial, but it has to be deep burial because each part of this plant that touches the ground will start all over again and grow another plant. So the poison we use on them, which I'll explain in a minute, is pretty efficient, and there are a number of different ways you can do that as well. So you can foliar spray this particular thing with a certain chemical. I won't name the chemical for today's purposes, but certainly there is an efficient chemical for that. But it needs to be over 30 degrees on that day for that foliar spray to be efficient, because it doesn't work quite as well. However, that same chemical, we can utilise a stem injector. So what I have here is a stem injector. And what happens with this one is it'll give a measured dose to the plant. So we will go at that plant, which I'll demonstrate very shortly, particularly at the stem. This will deliver 4 ml per injection. It stays internally in the plant and it's very, very efficient. And it can be done in cooler weather, whereas foliar spray is not effective. Stem injecting is effective in cooler weather, so we can do this in the winter months as well. Probably you'll see the plant change within 2 weeks, and depending on the weather, it could be 4 to 6 weeks and the plant will probably be almost non-existent. If you come back in a year's time, it'll be like a piece of cardboard lying on the ground. So it's very, very effective. What I have here is a couple of photographs of some Opuntia or wheel cactus infestations we had in the Reedy Creek area. So as you can see along those lines there, they are pretty substantial. So if you let them go without control, they just get pretty much out of control. That's how it works. However, you can treat them, and that one hillside that I showed you before, that's the same hillside. That was a foliar spray done from a contractor, and that was very efficient. It was an over 30-degree day, and he sprayed those out, and that is the first stage of them coming back to nothing. So that was probably, I'd say it was about 2 months after they were treated. It's a matter of persistence, and Landscape Board will actually can assist in that way. We can give advice and demonstrations, and we may be able to help with some tools and whatnot to get some of these things done. Foliar spraying on a big scale, that's a different story, but we are working through our waterways at the moment. We have done Reedy Creek, we're working through Millandella, we've done a lot of work along Saunders Creek, and now we're working in the Marne River to try to remove a lot of this sort of problem, along with African box storm, which I'll explain in a separate demonstration. So when it comes down to a stem injection, the simple thing you need, everyone's got a portable drill these days. And this here is just a normal spade bit, which you can buy from a hardware store. This is an extension for it. So a normal spade bit, which is used for drilling holes in wood, it's also a very effective tool. So we put these in our portable drills. And the reason we use the extension, for obvious reasons, if you take a look at this plant, it's difficult for me to get into that internal part of that stem. So these are not real friendly, so I try to stay as far away from them as possible. We also use the stem injector, which has what they call a Velpar Spear on it. And that same thing, it's a long thing, so I can kind of reach in there and stab some injection into it without me getting lots and lots of these prickles in my hands. So not a pleasant experience. Normally what I'll do, if I'm using any kind of chemical, normal circumstances with a foliar spray, I'll wear overalls, button to the neck and the collar, to the wrist and the collar. I normally wear a respirator of some kind. I use protective glasses and a hat, and I always wear boots. Most of the stuff should be washable so that you can, after use, you can use it and wash it. So with a thing like this one, because there is no foliar spray, I still like to use chemical gloves because it's the right thing to do with using any chemicals. So all right, so the initial thing I'll do is I'll pick a spot on the plant, the one that I can access the best. So I'll reach in along that plant there and I'll find the biggest part of the stem and I'll drill a hole. And I'll pick a few places to do that. So in some of the bigger pads down the bottom, I'll do the same thing, I'll drill a hole. You don't have to go very far at all, probably 25 to 50 mil. Yeah, not very far. If you go too far, you can go through the plant and then the chem comes out of it, so you don't want that to happen. So that's the initial stage I'll do with a stem injection. And then the second thing I'll do, as I say, this is the chemical I use, which I won't name, but anybody wants to know what it is, you can contact me anyway. This chemical is very, very efficient, as I said. This won't take long to kill this plant. We take a picture of this plant in 4 weeks, it's going to be in an awful lot of trouble, despite the fact we've got cool weather at the moment. So then you find your hole, and you put your spear inside it. Let's get the air out of that. One squeeze, 4 mil in each particular hole. Now occasionally, if you've got a real big plant and it's a long way from the stem, you might want to add that by finding a pad, and you push the Velpar Spear down in the pad, withdraw it a little bit, give that about half a squirt, couple of mil. Some of the real big ones, I'll sometimes do that around the outside as well, and that works its way right through the plant. So generally, a plant this size, probably, 3 or 4 holes in the stems is probably enough. As a fail-safe, if they're bigger than that, I'll quite often put a little bit more chem in through the pads. Landholders can do this. We give them instructions on how to do it, and if they're happy to walk around their properties and drill and fill, it's as simple as that. And that will eradicate this plant. The trick is to monitor. When you've done something, come back, and sometimes you might have to give it a secondary poisoning sometimes. Like every plant, you may not get everything, but you certainly can get closer to the core of it. And then ultimately, if you need to retreat that, you can retreat that at some stage in the future. So, and the other thing about it too, landholders in particular have a lot of power in the sense where if they have neighbours who can see that this can be done, they will quite often ask the question, how do you do that? And that then moves it out into a wider perimeter, which is good because it brings a broader control in there. Always speak to neighbours. If you're enthusiastic about your results, tell everyone you know. And ultimately they'll try to do the same thing. So in the long run, we're all on the same page.